Okay, good evening and welcome to the South Town Granville Regional School District School Committee meeting. It is 6:05. Just a reminder on public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment this evening, there are two sections that we will read public comments. In order to make a public comment, please send an email with your name and address along with your public comment to superintendent@stgrsd.org. Okay. So in your packets, you should have a secretary's report dated January 12th, 2020. I will entertain a motion to accept those meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, changes? Hearing none, we're going to do a roll call vote to accept the meeting minutes. Pam, you're first.
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, Amy sent out an email a little bit before this meeting with warrant articles. Please take some time to review them, sign them, and get them back to Amy or the office. Superintendent Willard, any correspondence this evening?
I do not have any correspondence, Chairman Houle.
Moving on to our first public comment section, I'm going to ask Amy to check the email account.
Superintendent, or I was going to say Superintendent Houle, Chairman Houle, there are no public comments in the email.
Okay. All right, up next is the Student Advisory Report.
Good evening, everyone. Auditions for the Drama Club Spring Musical will be happening the week of February 8th. To get more information, you can email the email that's on the school website. At SRS, there's 2 more times to pick up semester 2 materials on February 10th from 7:30 to 3 and on February 17th from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Report cards from the previous term will be emailed out tomorrow, February 5th. For seniors, there's an opportunity to email admin future plans, and that can be shared on the class of 2021 college acceptance list, which is found on the school website. For juniors, the Richard Atkinson Scholarship is available through March 31st. For students in grades 8 and 9 that have an interest about attending a vocational school next fall, there's information on the website. Another big thank you to all of the guidance counselors, as it is National School Counseling Week. And there is a rise of concern among students as a whole regarding the return to school and playing of winter sports. Thank you.
Thank you for your report out. Okay, we have 2 educational presentations this evening. First up is a potential international trip for 2022 to Italy. Mrs. Grunwald is going to present on that.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for having me. And I was glad to hear in the student report that the announcement for auditions for the drama club spring performance are in the newsletter. We're excited that we can continue to do a Zoom production this spring with the students and keep the drama club going. So again, thank you for having me tonight. I wanted to present with proposing the rescheduling of the Italy trip for next April. So this is a trip that I presented to the school committee almost a year and a half ago, which was approved. Enrollment was begun for the trip, which again was scheduled for this coming April. Sadly, the trip that was scheduled for last year through the foreign language department had to be canceled couldn't be rescheduled because the students who were enrolled in that were all seniors. But there is the opportunity to reschedule this trip for April break of next year. It's a 10-day trip. The window would begin April 14th through April 25th. So as typically happens, would overlap one school day on either end of the vacation. The trip includes, the itinerary includes Venice, Florence, Sorrento, Pompeii, and Rome, with Pisa and Capri options for day trips. Again, it's the same trip that was presented a year and a half ago for this April, and it would just be moving the dates. We currently have 23 people enrolled, 12 students, most of whom are currently juniors, so this would be their senior trip. And of those students, 8 parents are also signed up, and 3 faculty, myself, Mrs. Harrington, and Mrs. Hartshorn. Those are just some photos. We did our 2013 trip was to Italy and Greece, and these are actually some pictures of our group on that trip. So the main, so again, this just shows some highlights. I had shared with Amy the presentation that was given to parents, and again, you had the general information about this trip in the past, but I'm welcome to answer questions about it. The main thing I wanted to share was the information about cancellation. So EF Tours, who we've been working with at the school for most of the 20 years that I've been there, have very, very specific cancellation policies in what they call their peace of mind program. That's always a built-in cancellation rescheduling option that EF provides if there are issues in the countries on the itinerary or in areas that are on the itinerary, whether it's issues of political concern, weather concerns, anything that would put the travelers in any kind of potential harm. And that allows for trips to be rescheduled or canceled with, rescheduled or canceled with a potential for a small penalty. They have added on what they call the COVID peace of mind program, which would carry over. So should the issues that have caused the trip to be put off for this year continue into next year, the students would again have the same cancellation or reschedule options. So what they've included within that peace of mind program, if there are travel bans regarding restriction to a location, or if quarantine is still part of travel prohibitions or restrictions, either in the US or overseas. So if any of these things exist at that time, up to 45 days before the trip, we can reschedule for a future date. However, that would probably cause the students who will be seniors next year to have to cancel. What they have, or drop out of the trip. So we could continue the trip and move it again if need be for students who would still be eligible, because there are a number of students who will be underclassmen next year. Not all the students will be seniors next year. If any of those travelers have to cancel, or if the trip is canceled outright, they have the option, travelers have the option of taking a voucher toward future travel that they could use for other EF programs, or they can sell that voucher to another traveler, or if they have a sibling who's an underclassman who would go on a future trip. So they have the opportunity to have this voucher that can be transferred at full, for the full money paid to EF. The other option is that they would cancel and they would get a cash refund of all monies paid to EF, less $500. That's always pretty much the policy of EF. At any point, a traveler does cancel on a trip, that they cancel with a penalty if they drop out of a trip that is scheduled. The final thing, if the conditions change closer to departure date, any of those restrictions go into effect. Again, the date of the trip can be changed. Travelers can cancel out of the tour and receive a voucher, or they can cancel and get a cash refund less $350. So as I said, the Peace of Mind program that EF has in place for all of its trips at all times has been extended to include issues related to COVID-19. My hope is that we can keep this trip, move it to next year, so that the students who are signed up now can look forward to this next year. But if we move toward next year and and it's looking like conditions have not improved, we have these options of dropping the trip at any point through next spring. And if anybody has any questions, happy to try to answer them.
Any questions on this trip? We will not be voting on this evening. We'll be voting on this at our next scheduled meeting. So please, if you have questions regarding this, please take advantage of Mrs. Grunwald being available right now. Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Feel free to contact me via email if any questions come up.
All right, up next, Superintendent Willard on the annual town report.
Thank you, Chairman Houle. In your packets tonight, you received the annual town report that we send to all 3 of our school towns. In it, there was a little bit of a change this year because we did have to address the abrupt ending of last school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We discussed the multiple votes taken on a school budget and how it impacted the overall town assessments. Besides that, everything else is very similar. The schools went through, they put in their staff members, they put in I can't think of the word right now, the priorities that they were working on in their buildings. And just so everybody knows that this is last school year, the 2019-2020. It's not a fiscal January 1 to January 1, but we do it based on a school year. So we did try and capture as much as we possibly could about COVID and how it impacted our school year and our initiatives that we were working on.
Any questions about the report? Okay, moving on. Do not have any policies this evening. We'll move on to action items.
Great. So move to approve the annual town report for the Southwick Tolling Granville Regional School District for FY20 to be submitted to each of the 3 member towns recommended.
So moved.
A second.
Okay, any questions on the town report? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan? Ryan?
Hold on.
All right. Jeff is a yes. We go 6-0-0.
Be it resolved that the Southwick Towling Granville Regional School Committee hereby extend their congratulations to Linda Nicholson in recognition of 13 years of school nutrition excellence. And we hereby convey our sincere appreciation for your valuable efforts, dedicated service, and assistance rendered, which has enhanced the image of the Southwick Towling Granville Regional Schools. And a record of these resolutions shall be permanently entered into the minutes of this school district. Recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Any questions on this resolution? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes, I can barely hear you if that's you, Sam.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan? Ryan?
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Sorry, yes, sorry, it was my phone.
Okay. And Jeff, the resolution passes 7-0-0.
Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Towling Granville Regional School Committee and Stephen Presnell, Director of Finance and Operations, for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions on the Director of Finance and Operations contract? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes,
And Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Towling Granville Regional School Committee and Eric Wykander, Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Any questions on the contract for the Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
yes,
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
yes,
And Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to accept the settlement agreement by and between the Southwick Towling Granville Regional School Committee and the Southwick Towling Granville Clerical Unit for the contract period July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, any questions about the agreement with the Clerical Association? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
yes,
And Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0-0.
Move to accept the settlement agreement by and between the Southwick Towling Granville Regional School Committee and the Southwick Towling Granville Education Association Paraprofessional Units for a one-year contract commencing on August 25th, 2020. And I also, 2020, August 25th, 2020. And I also want to personally thank the paraprofessionals for the work that they've done this year to go above and beyond. in our new way of teaching remotely. And I am so proud of all of them. Recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, any questions on this agreement with the paraprofessional unit? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Pam, you're up first.
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
John,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Move to accept the settlement agreement by and between the Southwick Tolling Granville Regional School Committee and the Southwick Tolling Granville Education Association Custodial Unit for a one-year contract commencing on July 1, 2020. And again, a big thank you to our custodial unit for all that they have done this year to keep our schools safe and their attention to detail in the classrooms above and beyond. So thank you to them and recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, any questions on the settlement agreement with the custodial unit? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
John,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Move to accept the memorandum of agreement by and between the Southwick Tolling Granville Regional School District and the Southwick Tolling Granville Education Association Incorporated for COVID-19 leave for the time period January 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021, recommended.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, any questions about the agreement on COVID leave? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
John,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve home education proposals HS 2021-84 through HS 2021-86, recommended.
So moved.
I second.
All right, any questions on the home ed proposals? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Sophie,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
John,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve an unpaid leave of absence for paraprofessional Stephanie Ribeiro for the period January 29th, 2021 through August 24th, 2021, recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions on this leave of absence? Seeing none. Call for a roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
Jonathan,
Yes.
is that a yes?
Yes. Did I?
Maria,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Jeff is a yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget appropriation transfers as outlined on the attached document dated 2/4/2021, recommended.
Sorry, having a hard time getting to my mute button. So moved.
I second.
Would you like to just give us a quick overview on this? I know the FinCom has seen this.
Right. We Finance Subcommittee reviewed this, it seems like eons ago, but at their last meeting earlier in January. This is mostly a housekeeping item. It's really just to get some of the line items in our FY21 operating budget back into the black. When the budget is created, certain assumptions are made based on where staffing will be needed. Invariably, there are some changes and adjustments that occur. The biggest block of money right here has to do with substitute teacher wages at all 3 schools. And that's really as a result of the need for, and Jen can correct me on the term here, but a dedicated or permanent substitutes, as well as at Powder Mill, a significant long-term substitute arrangement to deal with, I believe it was a leave of absence. So that represents the bulk of it. There were outages or unexpended, uncommitted funds in a number of line items. You can see a fairly significant number coming out of the Powder Mill School teaching salaries. Some of the other smaller ones deal with contractual adjustments based on the teacher's contract and making adjustments as needed. Some things that we weren't able to budget for going into the budget development cycle last year. We've been a little remiss at getting these things in front of you guys the last couple of years, so we want to try to get this back, and you'll probably be seeing a couple of more of these before the end of the fiscal year, or shortly following the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, any questions for Steve? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. No questions. I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Pam?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is yes. Passes 7-0-0. Okay, moving on to reports. Up first, Superintendent Willard.
Hey, I have a few reports tonight. First, I want to thank, there's been a lot of members of our school community that have called and reached out to me with some really valid questions and some confusion I think that we need to address tonight. One of them being the remote day versus a traditional snow day, and what goes into making that decision and how is that decision made? I want to let you know that in the fall, we did meet with our teachers union and we talked about any concerns that they may have about having remote days during inclement weather. Some of the things we talked about were whether teachers could effectively manage the home while tending to their classes. We talked about what contingencies would be in place if the teachers' childcare facilities were closed and they still needed to attend to their students. We talked about the fact that a lot of our staff live in rural communities that don't have high-speed internet. And so even while we are remote, they do come to our school buildings every day to teach remotely, because that is where they have the high-speed internet and that is where they have all of the materials that they need to teach remotely. And some of our classrooms, lessons require much more than just a simple computer. It requires double monitors, backdrops, calendars, poster boards, And their setup there is very elaborate. It's not as simple as just a computer. So we also looked at that, and we looked at what we looked at the time with the social emotional needs of our kids. They were sitting in front of computers all day. With what was happening in the world, could our kids just have a traditional snow day and just feel like kids again, and give them that little bit of childhood youth and fun that we remember as when we were children? And when we were discussing it, we did not have the technology at home to actually move forward with remote instruction. So at the time, I did send out a memo that said that we would be having traditional snow days. After the district went fully remote in early November, the technology barrier was lifted, and all of our students had a device, and all of our instructional staff had devices, and Wi-Fi's were given out to families that required them. However, we still had the factor to think about where we still have about a third of our teaching staff come in and work from their classrooms every single day, where they have access to all their materials and how they teach most effectively. Some were concerned that if we were prepared to teach a lesson in person, that it does take substantial time to change an in-person lesson to a remote lesson based on all of the PowerPoint, and taking a lesson that is in person and changing it to an electronic lesson does take substantial time. And that's why when we did the MOA, there really was that 48-hour clause, because it is a substantial request on the teachers to pivot from one mode to the other. And that's another issue we looked at, was equity. A lot of times in Southwick, we may not have tons of snow. We may not have the winds, but I heard school board member Locke say that in Tallinn, they just had 1.5 feet of snow up there. And our hill towns are part of our school community, and they do get very, very different weather on a lot of occasions than what we receive down in Southwick. There's a lot of power outages. I know a lot of families who live in Tallinn and Granville, they have generators because they're used to their power going out. We know that we've had to provide a lot of Wi-Fi hotspots to our families who live in West Granville and Tallinn, because their internet connectivity is spotty sometimes, and in inclement weather, it's even worse. So we really look at a lot of these things. The most important thing is, if we're going to call a remote day, I need to make sure that our schools are accessible to our teaching staff. That was my promise I made to our teachers, because we don't want to just provide a subpar education and count it as a day of school, but we want to give you the education and the lessons that you receive every day and that we expect our teachers to provide. So it's really not a simple decision when choosing between a remote day and a traditional day. I wish there was a science out there or a simple algebraic equation that I could do, but we do look at a variety of factors. And the most important one is that we really do want to make sure that our students and our staff will be safe. Then we decide if we can provide that same high quality instruction remotely as we would in person. We know that every call that I make has potential implications on families, but we do want you to know that it's always our intent to prioritize the teaching and learning that we give to our students, and we always want to make sure that we're giving you our best. So I don't have a formula that I look at, but one thing I can tell you is that I do make sure that if our teachers need to, our school buildings can be open. And if our school buildings can be open, then there is the likelihood that I will choose a remote day. But if it is not safe for our teachers to get to our schools, then it will probably be a traditional snow day. School board, do you have any questions for that?
I just wanted to thank you for clarifying that, Jen, because that was actually one of my own questions, and it makes perfect sense to me now. So thank you very much.
Welcome, and I apologize for not sharing it sooner. We've had a very mild winter, knock on wood, and it hadn't come up. And I also apologize. I have to be honest, when I looked at the weather on Friday, I was more excited that our kids were coming back on Monday and concerned that we might have a snow day on Tuesday. And I was upset about that. I wish the weathermen had the science better down, where we could predict the weather better. But even when we were looking at it Sunday night, when we made the decision, the storm wasn't even supposed to start between 7 and 10 in the morning. So I apologize for the late notice. We're trying to do the best we can, and but the safety of our students and staff always weighs on me, and it is the priority in every decision I make. Any other questions?
I have a little question. I do know that along with all the different openings and different changes, there was some confusion too with the email that went out about Southwick Regional School will have to stay remote. And then if you got to the second paragraph, then you realized that it clarified that Powder Mill and Woodland would be returning as expected. I'm wondering how often that probably happens for people when they're reading or skimming through the emails. And I'm wondering if something as simple as writing K-2 or pre-K-2 and 3-6 and 7-12 might help next to the school names, but just throwing that out there.
We can do that. I'm always looking for ways to improve communication. That was one of the conversations I had with a parent. Trying to be as transparent as possible. I know some of these decisions at home seem random. I'm just trying to give you some rationale and anything we can do to clarify, because we know there was some confusion when I said Southwick Regional School. That is what people refer to as the high school. It's our 7-12 school. We are the Southwick Tolland Granville Regional School District, and I think some people did get confused between Southwick Regional School and the district. So we will work on that communication. Any other questions? Okay, the other thing I want to talk about, and some great conversations I did have with parents this week, was in regard to the MOA that we currently have with our teachers and our paraprofessional union. As you know, we have met 2 of the 3 criteria, which keeps our district closed. And we have another section of the MOA that makes exemptions, that if there are no cases in a school, we can reopen a school or a program. So as you know, our high needs program have been back now for, I believe, 4 weeks. This is Woodland School's 3rd week back. We were able to open Powder Mill School this week, which is all very exciting. And last Friday, when we met with our safety committee, we had no cases at the regional school, so we were able to open the regional school. When looking at the cases, we look at the days that they were tested and whether they are part of our community. On Tuesday, we did receive a test result from somebody who was in our community and in our window. And unfortunately, we had to, per the MOA, close Southwick Regional School. I do want to tell you that we have been actively working with the teachers union, and we're looking to get an interpretation of some language, and the union will be taking a vote this upcoming week, some clarification on the MOA. The good news is this week we do not have any current cases that fall into the Saturday to Friday window that we're looking at for Southwick Regional School. So although I can make no guarantees, there's always tomorrow morning and there's always the weekend, but we do look at it week by week, data point by data point. and are closely monitoring the cases and the dates of testing to get our schools open as soon as possible. The other thing that we're currently working on is we are working on creating an additional MOA with our teachers union because vaccinations are right around the corner. And we'd like to create an MOA for when our teaching staff is vaccinated. And to let you know, we are also working with the town of Southwick and working on a vaccination plan and a vaccination rollout for our staff, if at all possible. We did send a survey out to our staff, so we hope if you are anticipating getting a COVID vaccine through the school department, please reply to that survey. If you can get a vaccination someplace else earlier, we encourage you to do so. We don't know how many vaccines we're going to be getting, but we're trying to get ourselves set up so when the vaccines are here, we will be ready to go. I'd like to thank our lead nurse, Marsha Lamoureux, Board of Health, Tammy Spencer, and Kate Johnson, our public health nurse, in all their work that they're doing behind the scenes to get this vaccination clinic up and running so that we will be ready, which has a direct impact on the reopening of schools. So just going to give you an update on that as well. Anybody have any questions from the school board?
Any questions for Superintendent Willard? Anything else, Superintendent Willard?
That is what I have this evening. And I really appreciate the parents reaching out to me. We do have a sports update coming up with school committee member Shantz under his liaison report. We do have an update on fall 2 that I know people are anxiously looking forward to. And I do believe that Dr. Sanchagrin was invited in case the school board does have any questions. But I do appreciate parents reaching out, calling our office, asking questions, and looking for clarification on some things that might not make sense until we have a conversation. So I appreciate it. And thank you for all the feedback, parents, that you have provided me this week. Thank you.
Okay, up next, Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Presnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few things I wanted to mention or bring the committee up to speed on this evening. First is the FY22 budget and that the budget development process. Some of you may have heard, and I think I did share some information with the finance subcommittee members, that the Governor Baker's budget proposal for FY22 was released last week. Actually, I think late in the week before. That triggers this release of the foundation budget information that DESE provides, which talks about the required local contributions from the 3 communities, talks about our foundation enrollment, foundation budget, state aid, as well as the cherry sheet, which talks about the other state resources that we would receive, and then some of the fees or charges that we would be obligated to. Something to note regarding the required local contributions for the 3 towns. Net-wise, there's a $44,000 increase to the required local contribution when you look at the final required local contribution for the current year versus the proposed contribution from the 3 towns that in Governor Baker's budget. However, some of you may recall the district's FY21 budget was based on Governor Baker's original revenue numbers, its estimates that date all the way back to January of 2020. And subsequent to that, the legislature the final budget that was adopted lowered those required contributions. So when you actually look at what the required contributions in Governor Baker's budget are versus what we are operating with in the current fiscal year, you actually have about a $300,000 reduction to the required local contributions for FY22 based on the governor's budget. So we'll be working with those numbers. On the positive side, there is additional federal money coming to districts across the Commonwealth in the form of the ESSER grants, ESSER. In our case for FY22, based on the governor's proposal, DESE is pegging that number at $909,000. So that will help in large part to offset the decrease to the required local contribution. And as this comes in more into focus, we'll keep you updated on that. We are going to have to settle on a date for a budget hearing. We may want to discuss that later this evening. The district is continuing its budget development work. We're proceeding along slowly and probably a little bit behind schedule for a typical year. On a positive note, we are seeing some very modest increases to some of our larger, more significant expenditure lines, such as the pension assessment, vocational tuition, both in district and out of district, group health insurance, and transportation. Those are some of our very large budget lines, and we're looking at either very modest increases to some modest decreases in those line items. So that's good news for us as we go through the process. Another thing I wanted to mention, the district is working with the town of Southwick on the Green Communities designation. We were approached by the town select board to see about our interest and willingness to seek that designation, which is provided by the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. Towns of Granville and Holland are already designated as green communities, but because the school buildings are actually located in and owned by the town of Southwick, there's a better, there are some things that can be achieved for both the town and the school district if we're able to partner with the town and get that green communities designation. It does require the district adopting, as well as the town adopting a what DOER refers to as an energy reduction plan, which requires a commitment over 5 years to reduce energy consumption by 20%. That may be a difficult target for us simply because of where we are with the energy reduction measures that have already been taken, largely because of the MSBA project, which put more efficient equipment in all of the buildings, put some more efficient lighting in. We've also leveraged some Eversource programs to expand on the LED lighting. So it's questionable as to whether we can reach that 20% target, but we're going to give it our best effort. So Mr. Wykander is working with me and the representative from DOER to see if we can actually qualify for that designation and help the town. The payoff with this program is that it does make you eligible for certain grants, which could be very helpful in replacing some of our legacy systems that remain, that were not replaced by the MSBA project. Namely, and I know the finance subcommittee's heard about this before, the boilers at the Woodland School, some of those were not replaced as part of the MSBA project. There's some other examples as well. So that's the Green Communities program. I wanted to take a moment to really applaud our food service personnel. Last Tuesday, so as some of you know, we've been participating in a 5-day meal kit distribution for families, which has been a huge success. We're seeing over 225, on average, over 225 families per week showing up and basically getting five days worth of breakfast and lunch for their students. It's a fabulous program that we were basically enabled to do through USDA and the DESE Food and Nutrition program. Strongly encourage families out there to take advantage of this. The things that the food service folks are doing with the types of food that they're preparing and the quantities, it's a home run. And I think the folks who've been taking advantage of it seem very appreciative and feel like it's a great opportunity. These are all being provided free of charge under the USDA's extension of the free lunches and breakfast across all districts across the nation during the COVID pandemic. So it's a wonderful program. Last Tuesday, the food service director and his team were out there in the snow. Families were showing up in their cars, and while it was snowing, they did it with a smile on their face. I tried to help out as best I could. I probably was getting in the way more than anything, but they did it with a smile on their face, no complaints under very adverse conditions. So I was very proud to be associated with that group and to have them part of the ancillary services here in our district. So again, if folks have the need or would like to participate in that, they can pre-register for those meals by going to the district website and the information there. And two other things I'll quickly mention. We are continuing our work on the partnering with the town of Southwick and Granville and Tallinn for sharing their coronavirus relief fund municipal program monies that they have not committed or encumbered yet. So I think I discussed this at a previous meeting. There's about $106,000 that we could be reimbursed for COVID related expenses. And we've been sharing documents and getting each town's legal review on those. There's a sub-grantee agreement that the district will have to execute with all 3 towns, but work on that is moving along. And we did forward some things off to the town of Southwick today. So that is good news. And lastly, this week we received a draft of the fiscal year 2020 audit report. So we're perusing that, and that will be available for the committee at a future meeting, and we'll invite the auditor in to give some commentary on their findings in the report. And available for any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fresnel. Any questions for the Director of Finance and Operations?
I have a question. This is Chelsea. Going back to the green schools and green
communities. Yep.
It's like terrible. Could they go to our previous data?
Yeah.
Haven't even been in the schools. Well, some of them. I was thinking, would we be able to access some of those grants before we achieve the goal? I don't know if you said this, but I was trying to listen. Or would we have to achieve the goal of 20% in order to be able to access those grants?
You can achieve the goal prior to You can access the grants prior to achieving the goal, but you have to be able to demonstrate a path toward the 20% reduction. So DOER would want to see what that path looks like for us. They have access to all of our energy consumption data, so they know exactly what we're doing in kilowatt hours and what our demand profile looks like and our natural gas consumption. So they have access to all the historical data. What we're going to be focusing on along with them and possibly with the town is looking to engage a consultant to assist them through this process. So we might want to partner in with that consultant as well. Be looking at ways that we could achieve that 20% reduction off of the baseline that gets established by DOER, which is going to rely on our historical data, and it'll be the historical data over the the more recent years. It won't be back to building project. If I can mention, with the building project, we did manage to achieve what I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe is the only LEED certified building in the entire district. And that's the Suffolk Regional School did achieve that LEED designation. And that requires a lot of energy conservation measures to be able to achieve that. So right off the bat, we've already done a bunch of things that in many cases, if you were talking about older school buildings or buildings that hadn't been renovated recently, there'll be some low hanging fruit, as they say. We don't really have that much in the way of low hanging fruit here any longer. But we're gonna pursue it and see what we can get. The grants can range as much as a couple $100,000. So it's definitely something that would be advantageous for us and the taxpayers in the town and the region if we're able to access that.
Really exciting. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Presnell? Thank you for your report. Moving on to subcommittees and liaisons. Any committee that would like to report out at this time?
It's John. I can do an update about the sports stuff. I think Amy's got able to pull up Dave's email. So I'm more or less just the messenger here of what Dave had passed along. That as you can see on the screen there, they're ready to propose girls volleyball varsity and JV, girls basketball varsity and JV, boys basketball varsity and JV, unified soccer, sideline cheer, and hockey. That hockey being likely practiced only 2 to 3 days a week. Since they're not going to have a lot of time on the ice, I think he mentions in here that it would be appropriate for that to be extended. The start dates would be March 1st and run through April 25th. And there will be bubbles created for opponents. And as you can see on the bottom here, and this is obviously no surprise to anybody, the fall two items of soccer and field hockey and cross country are not going to move forward for somewhat obvious reasons. I think it looks like everything is doable. It looks like just there'll be some facility issues, but I think Dave thinks he can work that out.
Does the committee have any questions for John or AD Sancherman? Okay. Sounds like a viable alternative. Okay, any other subcommittee or committee report outs? Finance, we need to reschedule that meeting, our next meeting. Steve is not going to be available. Steve, do you have any suggested dates that we can put on the calendar?
Yeah, I'd prefer not to wait too long. So, but I don't know about people's availability during the school vacation week. I could be available on Tuesday, the 16th, Wednesday, the 17th, or Friday, the 19th. I just have a conflict on Thursday, the 18th. And if those dates don't work, then I prefer to do it as soon as possible the following week. Definitely need the finance committee to put their eyes with and have some good discussion around budget numbers for FY22 in advance of any kind of public hearing that we need to do.
Jonathan or Ted, Tuesday the 16th or Wednesday the 17th, I'm available 8:30 to 10. I don't know if that works for you too.
Say those again, Tuesday the 16th.
Or Wednesday the 17th, 8:30 to 10 a.m.
I think I'm okay on that.
Tuesday. I can make either one of those work, at least some part of it.
All right.
I'm not that important for it. I'm still learning what's going on.
Steve, why don't you just coordinate with Amy and she can send out an invite one of those 2 days.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other subcommittee report outs?
Yeah, so Jeff, the LPVEC Board of Directors, we met a couple weeks ago, and I guess the most important part of that meeting was that we were given for the first time a look at the preliminary FY 2020 budget. So I just wanted to confirm, Steve, that you have received a copy of that, because we were told that all of the districts had. So I just wanted to confirm that you had.
Yes.
Okay.
There was a joint meeting. I think initially it was shared at a joint meeting between the superintendents and the school business officials and the LPVEC administration.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And if anybody actually wants a copy of it, it is still preliminary, but if anybody wants a copy of it, let me know. I can certainly share. I also did receive notification from LPVEC today that they were going to move forward with bringing students back 5 days a week, which has been a change for them. They were running it 4 days a week, and then they had to temporarily go remote, and are now returning to 5 days. So that's pretty exciting. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Pam. Any other subcommittee or liaison positions that would like to report out? Okay, moving on to our second public comment. Amy, I'll ask you to check the superintendent account and read any public comment.
Okay. I'm just waiting for my machine to respond. Okay, I have one public comment is from Amber Bach, Southwick, Mass. She says, "Good afternoon. I have a few questions for the superintendent and or the school committee. One, what is the determining factors that the MOA is going by, and where can the public find those guidelines? Two, should at this point the MOA be amended, since the CDC as well as Governor Baker today stated that with proper safety measures and following guidelines, in-person school is safe for students and staff. Three, in the more recent emails to keep SRS students in remote learning, it stated, after consultation with the local Board of Health, which board members were consulted in this decision and what information was provided by the Board of Health in determining to remain full remote for SRS. since a lot of concern is about our children's physical activity, who is in charge of determining the reasoning that in fall students could play sports if remote, but now for winter students cannot play unless hybrid? 5, there's a rumor, and addressing this during the meeting could either expunge or confirm it. Did Superintendent Jennifer Willard take a trip recently, not only out of state, but out of the country? And that concludes public comment for this evening.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on to committee discussion. Any old business items? Any new business items? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Jen?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And Jeff is a yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.